Hey y'all, it's Gypsy. Well, this week's card is the Lovers. It's Roman numeral 6 in the Major Arcana. I had a very interesting week this week. I did not expect to learn as much as I did about the Lovers card. At a glance, they all looked very much alike, but as I started to kind of do my research and start picking apart the artwork, I realized that they're not near as similar as one would think they are. There is quite a bit of symbolism in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that was not there in the earlier days. There's another deck that just completely goes off on its own as far as a historical representation. And then the modern decks, we see sort of a wide variety as far as how the lovers are represented in their proximity to each other in the cards. We have some lovers that are just, in each other's presence, and then all the way to the lovers that are all up in each other's grill. Let me start out by talking about what Rachel Pollack says in her book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Now, I always start out reading the chapter that discusses that card and kind of get my mindset so that I know what I'm looking for whenever I go through all of my other cards. The Lovers card in general represents the bond between two souls, between two people, and how that bond between each other actually helps to enhance their bond with spirit, or takes them to another level. I think some ways it was described as giving the person a sense of purpose. In order to fully understand the significance of the love of spirit and the love of universe, you have to be able to have the capacity to connect with other people in that same way. And that kind of goes off on a tangent, but the general gist of the card is a strong, serious bond between two people or two souls. It's typically represented as male and female. There are representations that have same-sex couples. I believe that I found one deck when I was kind of digging around that was called the Cosmic Tribe Tarot. It's got a lot of nudity in it, y'all. A lot. I don't have that deck, but it does have 3 different options for the Lovers card, which I found to be very interesting. They have 2 males, 2 females, and then a male and a female couple. So that's something worth looking into if you're interested. But it addresses the concept that was brought up by Plato way back when, as far as platonic love, that kind of bond between two souls doesn't necessarily have to be between male and female. You still have that male-female energy. It's not necessarily always divided by gender in that way. Sometimes it's divided by personalities, and sometimes those two personalities can occur within the same sex. You still have those opposing forces that kind of come together. So that was also discussed in her book a little bit. Another way that the card is looked at is sort of being representative of adolescence or coming into an awareness of oneself sexually. That's that phase of life where we start looking at boys, when we start looking at other people, other peers, and kind of being like, hey, when that guy in 3rd period gives you that look and you get all fuzzy feeling inside and it's tingly. Those kinds of feelings, that unexplainable tingle that comes over you. I believe it was Mother Teresa. I think Rachel mentioned in her book that Mother Teresa even spoke of that feeling of ecstasy when one truly feels that true unification with God. Scandalous. This card is very connected to the 2nd chakra, which is another one. It's one of those 2nd chakra vibe cards where you, your raw sexual urges and feelings, and you're feeling drawn to a certain person for certain reasons. That kind of thing is addressed here in the Lovers card as well. When I started making up my scorecard, y'all, it was insane. I mean, the scores went from there were 9 points that were available based on symbolism. 2 cards had 8 points, and then next in line for 3rd place had 4 points. So, I mean, that is how different the cards start to get when you really start to break them down. The symbols that Rachel Pollack draws attention to, I'm going to kind of just start at the top of the card and I'm going to work my way down. Here's the Rider-Waite-Smith Lovers card, and yes, it does have nude figures on it, as do several of these Lovers cards, so I'm going to warn you now, there's a lot of nudity in this particular episode, so if you're sensitive to that, you've been warned. Rider-Waite-Smith deck. The very top of the card, we'll start there. We see the sun. We see the sun, which represents, like in most cards, a sense of happiness, a sense of passion, proactivity. Then below that you have an angel. Some have said that this could be the angel Raphael, which represents the superconscious. Again, the bond between the male and the female and them coming together basically results in this connection to spirit that is not almost, it's almost like it's being argued that it's not possible otherwise, that in order to connect with spirit and really become fully aware of everything that there is to understand, you have to be able to understand this bond, this bond between two individuals, the coming together of two separate things to form one great thing. Another aspect of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that is very well known is the Tree of Life here behind the male, and then the Tree of Knowledge behind the female. Now, the Rider-Waite-Smith card is very Adam and Eve-y, okay? It's very Garden of Eden. And so that's kind of what we think of here when we see the snake and the tree. A lot of people would assume that the snake represents evil. It represents the devil that tempted Eve. In a lot of tarot cards, actually, the snake stands for ancient wisdom, not necessarily evil or the devil. So that's something to think about as we look at some of these other cards, and the snake is maybe not as obvious as it is here. I think that there could be some, the temptation is an aspect of the Lover's card. It's a more of a shadow aspect, but it is an aspect of the Lover's card. So the fact that we see it here is good, but it is seen in different ways depending on what card you're looking at. Another aspect of this card is this mountain here in between. And to me, the mountain, and she discusses this in her book as well, Rachel Pollack, says that the mountain basically stands for unity. Mountains are strong, mountains are steadfast, mountains are hard to destroy, and they last for centuries, they outlive time. I see that as representing the type of relationship that the Lover's card represents. This is not a quickie card. This is not a one-night stand situation that we're seeing here. This is the love between two people that is lifelong. It is a serious bond. It is something that, transcends verbal communication and being able to even identify exactly what it is or how it makes one feel. This is serious stuff. This is everlasting, unconditional love. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what Rachel talks about as far as the symbols that we see in the Lover's card. So as per usual, I'm going to start out by discussing the Visconti Tarot because that is my oldest card. And as I've mentioned 100 million times, this is published in 1450 or thereabouts. So it's the Visconti Sforza deck. We see two figures here, and then it looks like a Cupid presiding over them. So I don't know necessarily, yes, it could be argued that it's an angel, it could be argued that it's a Cupid. What I find interesting is that it's blindfolded, much like we see in the Justice card later on in the Major Arcana. Which I see that to mean, love is blind kind of a thing. It's not based on beauty or aesthetics. It's based on a true bond between two people. I think it's interesting, too, that she has this green glove on, which we've seen in a couple of other Visconti cards. I know that it represents something. I'm not sure what it is. And I want to point out that these two people, as well as the ones on the Rider-Waite deck, they stand equal, okay? So keep that in mind. These two people look like they're of equal social standing. They're both about the same stature, and they look like they're on equal playing fields. Now, look at the Illuminati Tarot. This came out around the same time, but we see here that it looks like she's crowning him. It looks like she is of a higher stature than he is as far as social standing. I think that's pretty cool. I'm not sure what the actual significance of this is because I have not read into it, but the contrast I still think is very interesting. You still have the Cupid figure overhead, but I mean this is flying right overhead, pointing right down at his head. It's always pointing at the male, which I wonder what that's about. But there we see, the Visconti deck compared to the Illuminati deck. Kind of a different dynamic here, and it's, these came out around the same time. Now, 300 years later is when things got thrown for a loop. I believe that the Marseille decks were coming out about the same time as the Visconti deck, but the Universal Marseille is the one that I have. And it is a very different card. I don't have any other cards that look like this, and I actually had to go look and try to find other decks that had this same sort of a representation in it. And they all are based on the same Marseille style deck. There was one done by Jean Noblet. I'm not sure if that was a male or a female. I'm thinking it's a male. In about 1650, so that would have been about 100 years before this deck came out. This came out in 1751. And then in 1889, a Swiss man named Oliver Worth did a deck that also had a very similar picture to the one we see here. Now, what we're looking at is Universal Marseille, and here we see 3 individuals, not 2. Here in the middle, we've got a dude, and then here we have like an older, matronly, plainer looking woman, and then over here we have a younger, more beautiful looking woman. Now, this card has been interpreted in all different kinds of ways. In fact, in some decks, Rachel Pollack mentions in her book that this card was actually called the Choice, not the Lovers. This has been seen as a man having to make a choice basically between everything from being against good and evil, or he's making a choice between age and youth. He's making a choice between a spouse and a lover. It can also represent a mother versus a true love, which takes us back to that aspect of it representing adolescence and coming into one's own as an individual. There comes a point when the son has to leave the nest and go out and make his own life. And so this is also kind of representing that choice. Do you stay home and have your mom take care of you, or do you get out on your own and find love and create your own family and stand on your own 2 feet? I'm actually surprised we don't see this dynamic in more modern decks, but it's really been focused to those that are modeled after the Marseille Tarot. There are other artists that have created decks since then, and if you Google hard enough, you'll find them. I started finding them and realized I'd gone off on a tangent, but this card posed some very interesting questions. It is very different from all of the other lover cards that I have, so I wish that I could explore this more. I could probably do a whole video just on the Marseille lovers and the significance of this versus the regular lovers card. But I can't focus on that one card for the whole video. I've got a ton to go over, so we're going to move on. The 2 cards that were the most similar to the Rider-Waite Smith deck were actually the Illuminati Tarot and Tarot of the Magical Forest, which should come as no surprise. Here they are right here. Now, you see here, I gave them both 8 points, but I'm thinking now that the Illuminati Tarot could probably go ahead and get 9. I didn't give him points for having a sun, but the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking a sun is represented. There is light obviously shining above his head, so I'm going to go ahead and let that one go. This one gets 9 points. We'll call this one the winner. And this one has 8 points because the gaze. You see the gaze here? In the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot deck, we have the gaze. We have him looking at her, and she is looking up at the angel. You see that? Okay, here we don't have that so much. We have the opposite in the Visconti Tarot. She's looking at him, and he is looking up at the Cupid. And then again here, nobody's looking at the Cupid. However, in the Illuminati Tarot, they are gazing very similarly. He's actually looking down at the ground, which him staring at her is also representing him focusing on earthly things. And then we see her staring up at the angel again, just like we saw in the Rider-Waite Smith deck. And now in this one, we don't have that. He's looking at her, and she's got her eyes closed. We still have the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. We have the angel. We have the sun. We have the snake. We have the mountain. We have it all. We just don't have the gaze, so we didn't get that extra bonus point. But very accurate representation, very Rider-Waite-y. Now it drops down to 4. I'm not going to discuss them in order of their score, which I do a lot of the time because there was such a big drop. When I was looking at the cards, my biggest thing that I noticed was there was a progression of the embrace, the proximity of the lovers to each other. In the Rider-Waite Smith deck, they're standing near each other, but they're not holding hands, they're not kissing, they're not hugging, they're not even touching each other. They're just in each other's presence. And then in some decks, I've seen quite the opposite, where they're almost like soft porn. Okay, so we have a wide range of lover cards. So I decided with the remainder of the cards, I was going to go from the ones that looked most like it as far as proximity of the lovers to the ones that were all up in each other's grill. So we're going to start with the Inner Realm Tarot. This one shows 2 figures. It's not even really clear which one's male and which one's female. You just see that there is a contrast there. The words that are on this card are emotion, temptation, health, passion, and love. I don't hear about health a lot in relation to the Lover's card, but I could see where, having a good sense of self and a strong bond with others could lead to a more healthy lifestyle. But here we have the, the light is shining through both of them. There is definitely a feeling of a connection between these 2 souls. They're very different, but they're also very alike. So, beautiful version of this. I like the Inner Realms Tarot version of the Lover's card. Next we have the Hobbit. Again, very simple card, nothing major and earth-shattering. We just have 2 friendly little hobbits sitting here talking things out. but you do get the sense that they're very comfortable with each other. You know, it's not hard to imagine that these two are a couple. She's got a heart here that represents love, obviously. We see what is, you know, could be assumed to be their home in the background that they share. He's smiling, she's looking at him. Very peaceful card, very lovey card, very sweet. So we definitely get the energy of the lovers there. The Steampunk Tarot, now this is the one that scored 4, so this was technically the 3rd place card. It still looks very Arthur Waite. Now they are holding hands, scandalous, which is a step up from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. They are dressed, which I appreciate. We have the angel up above. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, you see that there are clouds that are rising up, and here she's steaming. So it's almost as if she is manifesting out of their bond. This awareness, this super conscious comes out of this realization within each other, okay? And again, they're looking at each other. They are not, nobody's looking up at the Cupid, so we don't have the gaze. We definitely have the energy of the fire and of the nurturing feminine side. So, you know, the fact that they took the Christian symbolism out of here kind of makes it more clear that this is a male-female energy. It's not necessarily a good and evil energy. You know, they're both needed for full enlightenment. You got to have a little bit of both. So they're coming together, creates this beautiful, steamy, punky angel up above. Next we have the Paulina Cassidy Tarot. And again, now these guys are a little closer together. This is bringing in phase 2 here, okay? We're not standing next to each other. We're not just barely touching. We're actually, you know, physical bodies touching each other. You've got the male behind the female here, and they're riding on this goose. Again, they are both fully dressed. And we have these great little creatures that are circling around their heads. I'm not even going to try to go into what all is in there because it's a lot. But, you know, true to Paulina Cassidy's style, she's got a lot of symbolism crammed in here. Now, something that's cool about her 2 decks are that we have this letter here. I believe that from what I've read, this represents the message of love, that form of communication between 2 people that transcends words altogether. It's sealed here in this envelope. I think that that's a really cool way to represent that, you know, because that is a major part of bonding with someone is effective communication and being able to communicate with that other person, you know, verbally or otherwise. You know, when I'm either talking to my children or talking to Loverboy, you know, I can be saying one thing and feeling something else, and they'll pick up on what I'm actually feeling, whether it's good or bad. You know, sometimes I'm trying to hide frustration or anxiety, and they're like, "What's the matter?" You know, it's like, "Ugh." You know, but it's that kind of non-verbal communication between 2 people. She also shows that in her Joie de Vivre tarot. So again, we have 2 people. Now, they're on their own animals. These are still 2 individuals. They're not, you know, they have come together. We see them holding hands here in the middle. And again, they've got the bird up above them there that shows that message, that communication between the 2 of them. I like this Lover's card a lot. Again, I love this deck. I love the whimsy of it. The Wildwood Tarot. Now, this is one of those cards that brings me closer to this deck in general. I'm not really strongly connected to the Wildwood Tarot right now. I'm still kind of learning the deck. But this is one of those cards that really brings me in because I love it. It shows 2 people here. They're having a hand fasting. They are facing one another, so it's a little more intimate than the, you know, than the man standing behind the woman. Here they're looking at each other, and I think that it's a beautiful representation of the bond between 2 lovers. And the fact that they have the tree growing up between them there, you know, shows a symbol basically of security. The next card I have goes into the next phase. These guys are getting ready to start getting up in each other's grill, but they haven't yet. These are almost embraces. This is the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. Again, it's very simple, yet there's a lot of symbolism in there. This is a Ciro Marchetti deck. And here we see at the top we have this heart with kind of these little wings coming off of it. Very Cupid-like symbolism. And then the arrow is shooting straight down to earth, tying the divine to the earthly, you know, to the earthly things, which includes this tree of knowledge here that has the apple and again the snake representing ancient wisdom. And then to the very bottom there you see the sun. So it's got it, you know, it's got a lot of the symbolism in here. It's just a little bit different. It's done a little differently. Next we have the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. This is one of my favorites. I think it is a beautiful representation of the lovers. I know that this is supposed to represent the Fae and their connection to nature, but for me personally, I like to see this as a human. The human connection to nature and the sacredness of that bond, especially, within the pagan community, that bond with nature is what brings us closer to spirit. So I definitely get that feeling from this card. Absolutely, lutely. Love the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. Next we have the Tarot of Vampires, and again, I think it's a beautiful representation. We've got the white roses in the background that basically, to me, that's a symbolism of pure love, unadulterated. The red rose there is represents their passion, the passion that they share with each other. And it's all over their mouths, too. Leave that alone. We also see the death moth down here, which I also just think is very cool looking. I'm not exactly sure what it represents, but it sure looks awesome, so I don't really care. Cool. Tarot Vampires. Steampunk, Gods in the Machine. Now this one is a little bit, I don't know, this one is a little bit more racy. I don't know that I really feel that sacredness coming from this one. I don't know, this one's just a little bit, it's steamier. It's like backroom in a club kind of a thing. I don't get the feeling that they have the same innocent, pure love, long-lasting bond that we see like in the Wildwood Tarot. These are such different decks, I shouldn't even be comparing them to each other. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that sense of innocence, of purity, I don't really get it from this card as much. It's still a very cool card. In fact, one of the things I like most about this card is in the background here. It's got these two, it looks like Elizabeth Taylor from like an old movie in the background, but it's got these faces in the back kind of showing the past versus the present. I guess showing the consistency of love, that no matter what happens or, where people come and go, there's always going to be people making out in back rooms. That's not where I was going with that. Okay, Full On Embrace. Guys, this is the last fully clothed card. I'm just going to tell you that right now. They're starting to get nakeder and nakeder. Woo. Here we go. Shadowscapes Tarot. Y'all, this is my favorite Lovers card. I love this Lovers card. I can't say enough good things about this one. I think it's beautiful. We've got the sun up top. We have the winged, it's not Cupids, but we've got these birds, holding the crown, which I find interesting. It reminds me of the Illuminati Tarot, where we have him getting crowned and the Cupid is, about to shoot him through the skull there. Here we have the crown again. And, it's unclear. Is he giving up his crown because he's in love with her, or is he getting it because he's... What's going on? What's going on with the crown? We see other symbols here. He's got the white lily. She's got the wreath with the white flowers on it. Lots of, again, kind of like the Tarot of Vampires. We've got those representations of purity and pure love. We have the snake and the apple down here at the bottom. So that wasn't lost in all of this detail. We've still got the snake. We've still got the apple. We have roses and lots of lilies. Lots of white, pure lilies at the bottom. So, this is a card of pure love. I mean, just pure love. I just think it's beautiful. Next, we have the Spartan Lovers. This is from the Gilded Tarot, again, also of Ciro Marchetti. This one is just hot to me. I do think it's interesting, though. I gave them credit for the gaze here, because you see that he is looking at her and she is looking up to the heavens. So that's interesting. I also really liked the dolphins in this card. We don't see a lot. I guess the sun could represent the happiness in the Lovers card, but this is just a different form, and I don't think I've seen dolphins in any of the other Lovers cards. But the dolphins, to me, represent happiness and playfulness. And, friendship, laughing with your partner is something that in my world is very important. You can be lovey and squishy and buy presents and have all of the romance you want, but if you don't make me laugh, it ain't going to work out. I'll just tell you that right now. So I like the fact that this card has a playfulness to it with the dolphins in the background. It brings attention to that part of a relationship that really does make it last. This is probably one of my least favorite Lovers cards, and it's crazy because it's Ciro Marchetti. It's the Tarot of Dreams. I just don't care for this Lovers card. I can't really explain why, other than it makes me think of like those couples retreats that they do where they're like sex therapy, and you know what I'm talking about? They've made movies and stuff about it and like joke about it all the time. I get the, it's like sex therapy weekend retreat for couples or something. I don't want to see that. And that's just what that makes me think of. It's like they're doing an exercise that they've been assigned. I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting that vibe off of it. I normally just love everything Ciro Marchetti does, but this card throws me off. I'm just not digging it, personally. If you like it, rock and roll. I don't. Deviant Moon. This is kind of like abstract porn, in a way. They're all up on each other. In fact, she is getting on it. To be very crude. That's what it looks like. Sorry, folks, but her leg's up. I mean, that's more than a hug, okay? I like the fact that the snake hasn't been lost. We see here that it's almost like, and this is one thing I really like about this card, through their interaction, without his knowing, he is gaining ancient wisdom. And we see here that the moon is also blowing this mist on him. Now, in this deck, Patrick Valenza uses that stream coming from the smoke, I guess, coming from the moon's mouth, as a symbolism of basically sharing enlightenment, sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom, the moon's blessing on this person or this figure. So we see here that he is achieving that enlightenment, that blessing, I guess, from the universe, that awareness, without maybe him even realizing it, that's what's going on there. So, very cool representation. Next we have the 1977 England Alchemy Tarot. And this one's pretty risque. We see a really hot chick with a really scary looking dragon. The words bloodbound are on the card there. And, you know, she's very naked. She's very naked and very realistic looking. And, again, looks like they're doing more than hugging. She's even got her hand around there holding on to his little dragon booty. So, yes, very lovery lover card. Again, you know, I don't know. This one's kind of scary. It's kind of dark. I don't know that I necessarily get, again, that same soft, warm, fuzzy feeling. This is very sexual. So, you know, this one feels more like a quickie card, I guess. But, I mean, you know, it definitely could, you know, bloodbound, that's pretty serious stuff. You know, that doesn't, like, go away. So I guess there's the deep connection, is that, you know, their bond is more than just their physical bodies. It goes to the very blood that courses through their veins. And last but not least, we have the very, very naughty Archeon Tarot. This is the most risque lover's card that I have in my collection. This reminds me of the Victoria's Secret campaign right now with the wings. Someone done took her chonies and hid them, and she has nothing on, and she is all up on that boy. But anyway, the lovers, and you know what's cool here is that they still have the flame. They kept that flame, the flame of passion. You know, again, not necessarily as blatantly pure love, the true love, the white flowers and the lilies kind of love. But if you already kind of have that awareness about the card, it's not hard to pull it from there. I just, that's not something that I would probably get on my own from that particular card, because I don't know, it's just it's beautiful, but it's also kind of like, so it takes away from that a little bit for me, because I'm immature. Naked people make me shy, and naked butts make me laugh. So when those things are in a card, it's hard for me to focus on the message, because I'm like giggity giggity. Anyway, sorry. I hope you all enjoyed this week's discussion on the Lovers card. If you have tarot decks of your own, please feel free to do a video response. I've got a couple of fans that have been watching the series, and they've done some VRs. I keep their stuff in my down bar as well. Go check out Rory Rants and Chris. They've both done some awesome response videos to me. I'll put their channel links in the down bar below. Feel free to leave some comments. I love reading everybody's comments. I get them all the time. I try to answer them. I don't always answer them fast enough, but I try. Anyway, you guys have a great week, and blessed be. I am coming to you guys from my parents' house, so in case you're wondering why the scenery looks so different, it's because I'm not in my house. I'm somewhere else. So there's that.